So scientific racism, ये is part of the bigotry, prejudice and cultural bias. ठीक है? Remember we discussed in the myth of the scientific method, all the biases. Scientific racism is a very big problem. Nobody, at least that I know of, no one that I know of who has studied science has ever talked to me about scientific racism. They may know of it, but not as an academic subject, not as a problem in science itself. I think the only person in my whole time who has ever was interested in scientific racism, if I may be allowed to say, the only person that I've met who has really asked me to really go on this subject, again, I don't want to say, is Brother Fawad. Otherwise, no one I have met in my 12 years of on studying this thing has ever taken this topic to heart and trying to understand why. What is scientific racism? What does it mean? I'm not saying this because to praise Brother Fawad, I'm just giving you a fact. So these are the three components of scientific racism. History, the historical aspect of scientific racism, the sciences that are itself racist. You know, like physics, you cannot say is racist. It's based on some empirical facts, right? You can say mathematics, you can say chemistry, some empirical, okay, there might be some racial component to it or not, but they are based on some empirical, facts. These sciences that you see up here, they are totally racist. Any person, any scientist of today will never accept these sciences as sciences today. They are now called pseudosciences. So remember our lecture of last year when we started this thing? How do you differentiate between pseudoscience and science? Yesterday they were sciences. Today they are pseudosciences. Why? How? And what is the probability that tomorrow they don't change back? Or something that is science today changes into pseudoscience tomorrow and join these fields. So this is a fundamental problem in the foundations of science, which we touched upon several times ago. The third and the most dangerous part of scientific racism, I think all of them are dangerous, but is eugenics. Anyone here who has heard about eugenics? Nobody.
I know Eugene, but
it's unfortunate that nobody knows about eugenics because eugenics name has been changed. And it is now known as what? Do you know what this is called? Population control and family planning. Planned Parenthood. Balanced family. It's very unfortunate. Eugenics was taken. The reason why the word eugenics is not used anymore is because eugenics as a word, as a science, was practiced by the Nazis. And they took it to the extreme. But what people forget is eugenics, the science of eugenics, was invented and discovered and written upon in the United States of America.
Which Germans were practicing?
Which Germans took over. Let me just mention one thing here, and I'll not really go on further here on this tangent. What people really forget is numerology, astrology, palmistry, tea leaves, all these things were once the knowledge of that time. Agreed? Does anybody disagree? At that time, at whatever time it was, why are they not in favor today and they were favored at that time? What's the difference? Is it because we know more now? That's what we are told, right?
Maybe some new studies.
That's the same thing. Is it really that? It may be, but there's one component people always miss numerology or astrology enjoyed the sciences of that time, the knowledge of that time, because of what? Because it was looked favorably by the political system establishment of that time.
And besides their...
So Firon was a believer in astrology. That's why he had astrologers. Anthropatry, craniometry, and phrenology, these three fields enjoyed being sciences and knowledge of that time because the racist attitude, political attitude, ideology of the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century, late 20th century, people, the ideology, the political ideology was that. Haven't we gone through those presentations? Why Leopold II of Belgium, who massacred by the millions people in Congo, wouldn't he be pleased with this kind of science? He will be. Numerology enjoyed a lot of favor in India. Why? Because the political establishment, was in favor of numerology. Eugenics did not find favor in America, but it found favor in Germany, Hitler's Germany, because the political establishment decided to take over that part of knowledge.
So ultimately, whichever regime, finds whichever field in their favor, they just adapt that.
Okay, before I really begin into the history, how much time do I have left? Please, I want to know that because there's so much material. 12. Okay, I have 1 hour. Okay. Okay. So I have so look at what the papers are saying. Scientific racism is on the rise on the right, but it's been lurking for their years, meaning that scientific racism has never gone. It's part of this thing. Washington Post says scientific racism is creeping back into our thinking. The reason why I'm starting with this right now, and I will end up with this, is to bring about the awareness and the importance that how things are being camouflaged, hidden. The old ways are still there. The only thing is they are packaged in a way that you and I will not be aware of. Look at the lawsuit that's claiming here. How is scientific racism creeping back? I'm just trying to show you here. These are if you look at this one, this really threw me off. Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory. What has this got to do with racism? Just by looking at the name, you can never see the connection between this theory and racism. Just by looking at the name. And game theory. What has this game theory? This is something that I studied in my maths class. What has this got to do with racism? You'll be surprised. You will be surprised with this chaos theory, digital physics. What do they have? What is the relationship between these things and scientific racism in general? And you'll be surprised. This is not written by Muslims. It's unfortunate that we do not know what we are talking. What we are being fed. It's really unfortunate.
Digital physics also.
This is not the digital physics that you are talking. We are talking. I will tell you what that digital physics is. It actually should be digital philosophy. But anyway, here this is genetic determinism. All these are the forms of determinism. Last week presentation. Anybody remember the Mackinder world theory? The geopolitical theory about world island and all that. On this basis, the chessboard and all that is part of geographical determinism. But see, unfortunately, how we are reading is we read stuff, we don't connect them. So this scientific.
There is a couplet of Iqbal in Urdu. सबक फिर पढ़ सदाकत का, शुजात का, अदालत का, लिया जाएगा तुझसे इम्तिहान दुनिया की इमामत का।
काम दुनिया की
और काम तुझसे काम दुनिया की
Calm.
काम दुनिया की इमामत का। If you don't read all these things, if you don't acquire knowledge, I mean, what do you mean by we here?
We means Muslims. Yes. I'm all saying. I'm not. Like I just.
It's my job.
It's
Let him do that, or let him do that.
what I said. Let me say it again. Honestly, in the 12, 15 years that I've studied this thing, there's only been one person who has taken much interest in this. That's Fawad Bhai. I'm not saying that because he, I want to please him, but I'm just stating a fact. He is the only one.
ज़्यादा ही मक्खन लगा रहे हैं। क्या चाहते हैं?
On
छोटे इधर ही जा रहे हैं अगले।
Next time bread again.
one. It's not that other people have not listened to me. Don't get me wrong, but they only listened to me in components. All this that I'm showing you at one time or the other, I have shared with all of you in emails. My emails are long. Everybody knows that. The thing is, if we don't, the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the couplet is talking about, is not that we are going to become alim. No, that's not our aim. And I'm not in that position to say that. But the aim is we should, if I know, let me ask any of you here. Do you know Michael Jackson? Do you know Michael Jackson? What do you know about him? No, I'm not asking you, I'm asking him.
वो पॉपुलर था अपने डांस की वजह से।
मैं आपसे पूछूं, नुसैबा कौन था? कौन थी? आपको पता? I'm not picking on you. I'm just no. देखिए,
मीडिया ने मुझे दिखाया।
Exactly. Nusayba radiallahu anha was the lady who defended Rasulullah at Uhud. And you can read her biography. Not picking on you, I'm saying generally speaking. The reason is very simple. We read more of their stuff. Everybody, can you remind me about Churchill at the end of this presentation? Remember we talked about Churchill? There's a movie coming out that's going to win the Oscar, Darkest Hour, on Churchill. So I've collected together something about Churchill's. So inshallah, if you remind me, otherwise last week I forgot, I will forget again. Coming back to this thing is, please understand, this is a very important thing. Yesterday I was at my daughter's schools and it was speech night for them. So they were giving, kids were coming up, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, were giving speeches. This is an Islamic school. And I cried. It's unfortunate that people were talking about, kids were more interested in talking about supercars, Ninja Turtles.
Islamic, आपको पता है, there is nothing is Islamic. It
And-
doesn't create here,
And
Islamic. What is Islamic?
and the usefulness of technology. That one really ripped my heart open. The person who talked about this, the function of technology.
Oof. तो आपकी दुखती रह पकड़ ली उन्होंने।
He talked about the invention of algebra. No one, and that one I could not hold any longer. I had to go up and tell the teacher, why was algebra invented? I asked the lady, why was algebra invented?
सब गलती हो गई। उसने कहा होगा कि सब गलती हो गई। आइंदा ख्याल रखेंगे।
Astaghfirullah.
So what was the end when you asked?
I had told her the Nia. The Nia, why was algebra invented?
I think
The calculation.
The virasat, he said.
Ayatul
Yeah,
Dain.
yeah, exactly, the virasat.
This is the niya.
Understand the ayat, one ayat, Ayatul Dain.
You have invented the whole field. Subhanallah. Look,
He's
Al-Khwarizmi.
trying to identify the reasons of seeking knowledge.
Yeah,
The cause behind
Objective.
it. Look at the beautiful cause and look at the now cause. You know, I want to become a
Give
such and such
no.
person so that I
Why
can
was
earn
probability
such
invented?
money.
Why was probability invented?
for
Big difference.
for the gambling.
This is. Let me tell you, two drunkards were gambling and they wanted to win. Put it this way: drunkards got together
Just to
for gambling.
How to win the gamble?
predict the outcome, basically, right?
Yeah.
So this is the cause of invention of probability.
Challenge, we are
Anyway.
running out of time.
So this basically there were two ideas in the that started with scientific reason. How monogism and polygism, and mind you, I'm going to be mixing history with the current times. I'm not going to be separating them. So I want you to see the continuity of knowledge. So race and species, please note this very important part.
पहले तो हमने साइंटिफिक बताया नहीं, आगे चल रहे हैं.
क्या?
अभी ये मोनोजिज्म आ गया, बीच में पॉलीजिज्म आ गया.
So we already talked about scientific racism. We just spoke of scientific racism.
Is it possible?
Scientific racism is trying to use empirical evidence to support or justify racism, racial discrimination, racial inferiority, or racial superiority. Okay? Huh?
The will behind seeking scientific knowledge is to achieve these goals.
Yes. Yes.
Racial
Yes.
superiority and to make a race inferior and to discriminate.
That is scientific racism. This is the reason why we are talking about this thing. The goal of to seek empirical evidence. Again, I want to emphasize is to say that this cup, will measure it, I will weigh it, I will do everything just to show that this cup is useless. Just to give you a crude example on this thing. The aim of scientific racism was to get empirical evidence to justify the superiority of one race or the other. This is scientific racism. It was established sciences in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century.
That resulted in
In
a
the
lot of political outcomes.
and it was taken over, it was practiced by, its culmination was the eugenic practice of Nazis. The Nazis, the fascists, and the nationalists took over scientific racism and practiced it to the limit. And what has replaced Nazism, fascism, and nationalism today?
Imperialism.
That was what has replaced them. These three ideologies. What has replaced? These three ideologies have been replaced, or I should say not replaced, supplanted, because they have not been totally replaced. Is materialism and consumerism. So the eugenics, and I'm going to elaborate on this thing later on when we talk about eugenics. Eugenics that was practiced by fascism, Nazism, and nationalism was ideologically driven. Today, the eugenics of modern times, of present times, is now consumer driven and it is material driven. That is the difference. And I am not saying this. I will give you the exact quote who has said this. Okay? So, are we clear on what scientific racism is now? Important word to understand, race and species were interchangeable in the 18th century.
These terminologies.
These two words. So if I said this is a species and this is a race, I'm saying the same thing. what's if you remember our presentation on the foundation of
You mean that two races in human beings that used to be considered as two species?
yes. So because I just was going to say I was
Goyam and the other one.
no, hold on, don't say that. Don't avoid that topic yet.
Yeah.
The thing is this. What is there are 26 definitions or 18 remember, I don't remember how many definitions of species when we went through 20 something, 26 I think. Okay. What is the fundamental thing about a species? They can't interbreed among each other. This is what is understood.
Wow.
Okay? So when you're using these things interchangeably, basically you're saying a person in Africa cannot procreate with a person in Europe. This is basically what you're trying to say. Okay? How low can this be? You can understand. So one of the fundamental problems of scientific racism was to answer this question. What question? What question? How is it possible for a person in Africa to have a child with a person in Europe if race and species are interchangeable? So as we will go along, you will see how that was answered. Scientifically.
Wow. And this is monogeism and polygeism.
So let's go on.
Polygeism, the human origin is not single origin.
So the origin of races is basically, there has two major theories in the scientific racist world. Monogeist and polygeist. Monogeist means that the whole of mankind originated from one race and then split up. While polygeist will say, no, every race, Europe, Africa, Asia, the New World, has separate origins. Now, there was much debate about this, okay? So you would think, now the question is settled. What is today's modern evolutionary theory? Which part does it take? Which of the two does it is the dominant view?
Imagine these people, what they think about us.
You will see. Let's wait. I would really want to go to that part. You see, I only have half an hour. So let me go. I will repeat it.
So nowadays.
Okay. I'm going to skip. Oh, I can't. I won't be able to go that part. Okay. So are we clear on these things? So the infertility of human races was debated. Already spoke on that. Charles Darwin is involved in that. I will go over this thing some later on. Now, what is the recent theory about origin of human beings? It is called the Out of Africa, and it is postulated that all of mankind originated in Africa and then migrated outwards. Okay, this is the theory here, and it has been refined over time. There's still another theory. This is called the multi-regional origin of modern humans. So whereas Out of Africa says there was one race that spread out, the multi-regional origin of modern humans is mankind was originated from different parts of the world and then interbred. So do you see the difference between monogeism and polygeism? Can you see the parallels? And this is current times. There are different professors who are in these different camps, and each month, papers are written in favor of one or the other, or arguments are written from one camp against the other. You see what I'm saying?
So
You understand the implication of this thing. So the monogeist and the polygeism debate has really not gone away. It has got transformed.
So monogenism says that the
Origin is one.
Origin started from Africa
One
and then
big-
they
No.
spread-
Monogeism is the older theory which says all races started from one single race.
Pair.
Not pair, one single race.
Race.
Oh.
Let's forget about the pair yet.
Yeah, and then they spread all over
They
the
spread out. Polygism says there are different races have different origins.
And then they intermingled and
That's the question.
Secondary. We're not,
That's-
that is not under discussion.
While the out of Africa, the current model is evolutionary model. It says humankind evolved out of Africa and then spread out, similar to monogism. Similar, I didn't say identical. Multi-regional origin, which is the competing model against the out of Africa theory, says mankind has multiple origins and then they interbred.
it's similar to
So that's what I said. Can you see the parallels? So the monogist, the polygist debate has really not gone away. So this is that one. So we have how this single origin hypothesis versus multi-regional hypothesis plays out today. I'm sure, I don't know how many of you people are aware of mitochondrial Eve, Y chromosomal Adam, Aaron, the seven sisters of Europe and all these things. I'm not going into all that things here, but the point I'm trying to make here, I will go over this. I want to touch one single point and then I will go over this topic again, this part of the slide again, is please understand the continuity of knowledge is there and the debate has not really gone away. The way things are being pushed down your throat and my throat is different. Okay? I really want to go on to one part of this here. They really cover, I won't be able to cover everything. So, the roots of modern racism, you can see this quote from Sarkozy, and actually Macron actually made another one just a few months into his presidency. Read it yourself and see what it really means and why racism still exists. Look at what it says. The tragedy of Africa is that Africa has not fully entered into history. They have never really launched themselves into the future. The African peasant, what a nasty way to describe. This is Sarkozy. Remember, this is Sarkozy.
there is neither room for human endeavor nor the idea of progress.
Okay?
उनको तबाह खुद कर गई है.
Exactly.
Three modern philosophers without which there's no enlightenment. John Locke, the father of American Revolution. David Hume, the father of modern philosophy. Immanuel Kant, who will be considered the grandfather of modern philosophy. What do they think about race? I've highlighted those portions that you can see. Kant says what? The yellow Indians do have a meager talent. The Negroes are far below them, and at the lowest point are part of the American people. This is the philosopher of the Western world.
Yeah.
How many of you will come across this part of what he's saying? You will hear about Kant and his philosophy shut down your throat without mentioning the deep racist attitude, the prejudice, the bias, the negativity against human beings.
It's just personal racism, right?
What do you mean by personal racism? What is personal racism?
Right, because you are defining.
International चाहिए
No. Because you are maybe probably my question is not clear, but you are talking about scientific racism, right? But this racism has nothing to do with the science, right?
Oh, really?
भाईजान ये कार्ल कौन था?
Huh?
These are all scientists.
ये कांट कौन है?
भाई,
परफ्यूम
लेकिन
की दुकान लगाता है. ये कांट साइंटिस्ट ही तो है, फिलोसोफर है बहुत बड़ा भाई.
Yeah, but okay.
Oh, sorry. It was in my what I was thinking. I was not here today. Like when you, I was thinking that you are talking scientific
What is science?
scientific racism, and that's what I was. It
क्या
wasn't
है
clear.
what is scientific?
But that's what I was trying to figure out.
भाई तो बता चुके हैं ना, मैं दोबारा बता देता हूँ आपको. साइंटिफिक रेसिज्म ये है कि साइंस को इस्तेमाल किया जाए
प्रूफ करने के लिए,
रेशियल ऑब्जेक्टिव अचीव करने के लिए, रेसिज्म के ऑब्जेक्टिव अचीव करने के लिए,
एम्पेरिकल एविडेंस ढूंढे.
दिखाने के लिए, किसी को बालातर दिखाने के लिए. ठीक है, उसके लिए तहकीक की जाए और ऐसे एविडेंस लाए जाएं, इसे कहते हैं साइंटिफिक रेसिज्म। इसमें जो लोग शामिल हैं, इस कश्ती में जो बैठे हुए हैं, उनमें से कांट भी है।
एक भी नहीं है। अभी आपको दिखाते हैं who's who of Western philosophy.
समझे बात?
So he is commenting about Indians and Negroes.
And American Indians. The yellow Indians are we.
Yeah.
थोड़ा सा है, थोड़ा सा है.
We get talent.
Robert Boyle.
They can run
The
IT departments.
Robert Boyle. Anyone who has done basic chemistry knows Robert Boyle.
Boyle's law.
Boyle, I mean, anybody who has done basic chemistry understands this thing. What people don't know is that he was a deeply religious person. Okay? Look at what he experiment 11. What was his experiment 11 about? This was to find out this was to find out what happens to the children who are born of Portuguese men and African female slaves. Why does their skin become different? What happens?
So you're telling me that the new wife the prince is seeking is out of experiment 11?
Yeah, most probably. that's
From this partial information, Boyle constructed a troubling difference, no less between knower and the object of his knowledge than between white and black. And this is the Boyle's. When he used this whole thing to justify his wealth position, and he constructed the science of race to justify the enslavement of Africans and their descendants globally. Is this, let me ask any one of you, every one of us has done basic chemistry. Have you ever come across this part of Boyle's?
No.
Why not?
Because we read only a chemistry book, not chemistry book, right?
we had a
I also read chemistry book.
Because there is a separation of these things, you know. A personal character is separated from the achievement.
Yeah, we will talk about this thing later on.